I thought we would start off with just a quick introduction here. So let's see if I can get this to.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Good morning. By the way, I'm not a hologram. It's just me. I'm here real in the flesh. When I talk about deepfakes today, I'm going to be talking about videos like the one we just saw, and images and audio where the likeness of someone is replaced with the likeness of somebody else or the voice of somebody else.
I am not.
And the way these deepfakes are usually created is through machine learning, deep learning. One of these techniques is called a generative adversarial network, or a GAN. And the way the GANs work is that you take, let's say, picture images, you're putting them into the GAN, and the generator is trying to fool the discriminator, and the discriminator is trying to detect the fake. And this is it's like a feedback loop, and it's working. And when you're trying to create a video like the Morgan Freeman video, you probably need a lot of images, and you probably need a fair amount of audio, probably hours of audio to get something that looks that realistic, right? But today, this technology is evolving so fast that you can take a single image and you can create a deepfake. You can go to the App Store right now, you can download dozens of apps that can allow you to create your own deepfakes. You can go to YouTube and Google, and you can find a step-by-step instruction manual of how to create a deepfake. So this technology is easily accessible today. You don't need to have a Hollywood budget. You don't need expensive specialized equipment. You don't need to be a technologist or a computer scientist to know how to create these. So manipulated media isn't something that's entirely new. We have had Photoshop since about 1990, which many of you may be familiar with. In fact, 1990 was about the same time that Tim Berners-Lee was developing the World Wide Web. And a few things have happened since 1990, right? Today, the number of people that have access to the internet is about 63% of the world's population. 83% of people have an access to a smartphone. There are 1 billion people that are monthly users of Instagram, 3 billion people that are monthly users of Facebook, and then you have a whole bunch of people that use Twitter. So the fact that you have this technology that you can create these deepfakes, it's a little bit different than 1990, right? You can take that technology and you can easily disseminate it into the masses in a matter of minutes to a global audience. So there's more, right? It turns out us as human beings aren't very good at detecting deepfakes. In fact, we can be sometimes really bad at it. There's a number of studies that show this, and even worse, we think we're okay at it. We think that we have this false sense of security because we think that we are better than we are. In this study in particular, they tried to add like financial incentives, they tried to create some awareness, and it really didn't improve people's ability to detect the deepfakes. So you have this technology, it's easy to create, it's easy to disseminate, and it's easy to fool the human eye, and you put it in the hands of bad actors, and that's not really a good recipe, right? Most of the deepfakes that are out there today are they're videos of pornographic videos, non-consensual, that are directed at women, females, from celebrities to children. It's a really big problem. And you know, when these videos get out there, they inflict dignitary harm, they ruin reputations, and often before you can expose the fact that the videos are real. Politics is another area of concern. Obviously, the ability to take a video and attribute it to a political candidate, saying something they didn't say, doing something inappropriate, that's a powerful and dangerous tool. National security is another area. Again, to create a fake video with inflammatory content, you can incite you know, violence, recruit terrorists, disrupt diplomatic ties. And we saw this, right? We saw this earlier this year. Shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine, there was a very realistic deepfake video of President Zelensky telling his people, telling Ukrainians to lay down their arms. So that's a very dangerous tool. I expect that we're going to see this more in litigation. So there has been a child custody case where one of the parents tried to, they created a deepfake audio of the other parent making violent threats and saying things inappropriate to use in their custody case. Fortunately, the lawyer for the other parent was able to forensically show that it was fake evidence. But I think that this is going to be an issue that we're going to see in litigation. It's going to put more on the attorneys to authenticate evidence, to get it in, and there's going to be more placed on the courts, the judges, to make sure that they really do their gatekeeping role. But the other thing it does for politics and litigation in particular is it creates this environment where people start distrusting what's out there. And so a wrongdoer can say, oh, that video, even if it's real, he can say it's fake, right? And you know, we've seen some of this in politics already. But this concept is called the liar's dividend. And it just, there's people start to have a lack of trust in the system. And then maybe why many of you are here today is the potential impact to organizations. So there have been a couple of FBI warnings in the last few years about how deepfakes may impact organizations. In 2019, the CEO of an energy company thought he was talking to an executive at his parent company, and he said, you know, the boss had the same accent, sounded just the same. He was duped into sending 220,000 euros in this fake scam. And there was a similar incident just last year in Hong Kong. A bank manager, he thought he was talking to the director of a company that he worked with all the time. And he ended up being duped into sending $35 million. He was told, you know, they were doing a transfer for a transaction. He had a lawyer email him. He told him all this, and the lawyer emailed him. I mean, it was a fairly sophisticated scheme, but it worked. And there was another incident just recently where the dad here in the U.S., he received a call. It was from his son. His son was distressed. He'd been in an accident. He hit a pregnant woman, and he had been arrested. He needed bond money. And fortunately, the dad was able to get in touch with his son before he made that transfer. But he said, you know, the voice sounded just like my son. The cadence was the same. You know, these types of things are out there. And I think we don't even have a sense yet for how prevalent they are because, you know, there's no reporting requirement. But there was a cybersecurity company last year that said they had 17 companies that they had worked with that had paid an average of $175,000 per incident. So they're definitely happening. The Federal Trade Commission has been interested in this area. They've conducted some workshops. They're trying to raise awareness. Consumers are being scammed by these deepfakes. So it's probably happening more than we think it is. And you see, it's not just FBI, but other agencies are looking into this. And then the most recent warning that I've seen was earlier this year from the FBI, warning about deepfakes being used in interview process, particularly for IT jobs. This is pretty scary too. So, you know, the world is not the same in 2022 as it was in 2019. A lot of people work remote now. Sometimes, you know, the interview process it can be entirely remote. And it's the idea of somebody being able to get a job, and that's a cyber criminal in the IT department of a large organization is pretty scary. Just last week, or in the last couple weeks, I saw that an executive at a crypto company, he he received messages thanking him for meetings that he never attended, and he has been looking into this, and he thinks what happens is that there were deepfakes of him in video conferences of people impersonating him, and he didn't attend those meetings. So we live in a new environment, 2022. It's just something that we all need to be aware of. So I'm just curious, how many people think that we have less than 5 states or less have laws that regulate deepfakes? How many think we have more than 5? So we actually have 4, right? So California and Texas, they have laws that regulate the use of deepfakes for elections. California and Virginia actually have revenge porn statutes, and they have extended those to make sure that they cover deepfakes. New York has banned non-consensual pornographic deepfakes. They've also extended their right of publicity statute to make sure they cover artists whose likeness is used in the deepfakes. But we don't have many laws. There's a few reasons for that. One is that we have First Amendment rights, and they protect video and audio content that is created. It's a form of expression, and there's dangers with carving out exceptions to that, and so it makes it really hard to have good regulations that might be able to counter some of the threats of deepfakes. And there are a lot of beneficial uses. It's being used a lot in the arts. You see these living portraits. Mona Lisa comes to life. There's an exhibit down in Florida of Salvador Dali, and he interacts with the visitors in the museum. So this creates, just a more engaging, personalized experience. When you go to a museum, he's taking a selfie with people who are there. Most of the time, we're seeing deepfakes for beneficial uses is in education, and especially in history. There's a museum in Illinois that has hologrammatic interviews from Holocaust survivors. There's a CBS episode about this on 60 Minutes episode. It's really interesting. Encourage you to check it out. But just think about middle school students going in to this museum and having these conversations with Holocaust survivors. It's very cool. And also a way to preserve their legacy, long after they're not here. So that's pretty interesting. And then we see, deepfakes used in movies a fair amount today now. So there's a lot of good that we have to manage in addition to some of the threats. And because we don't have a lot of laws that regulate deepfakes, we're really reliant on technology. Fortunately, there's been a number of initiatives from businesses, from government, from academia, working together to try to develop technology that will detect deepfakes. I think Facebook and Michigan State have an initiative. Microsoft has come out with a video authenticator tool. The federal government actually had a deepfake prize competition just to promote and encourage research into this area, collaboration, and try to figure out how we're going to try to mitigate some of the harm that comes from deepfakes. And then social media platforms, you know, they play a big role here, and it's hard to tell where they're going to go. Some social media companies have taken a position they're going to try to ban deepfakes. Others, you know, they're not required to regulate them by law, so they may not. You know, should social media companies have to make people authenticate what they upload? That's one of the conversations that's being had, but it's still to be determined. So what do we do about this if we don't have laws? The technology is sort of evolving in order to protect ourselves and also to protect our organizations. And come back. Whoops. Oh. Sorry. Well, I lost my place here, so I'll just keep going. You know, one of the things that we can do is just be really careful about what we are sharing with other people. So that's a personal choice. It's a personal choice about what you share, right? But you just need to be thinking about what you're putting out there into the public audience. I was going to show you a slide, maybe. Oh, it's not there anymore. Okay, it was in a different deck. I was going to show you a slide of you know, what not to put on LinkedIn, which is identifying people in your IT department. You know, giving out too much information about your organization. Those are just things that you just need to be mindful of, because they can be used by people to take advantage of unsuspecting employees in you know, a situation. The other thing is I know I said that we're not very good at detecting deepfakes, but you still can be looking out for things. There are visual cues. You need to be alert and aware. You know, when you're looking at images, don't assume it's real. And there are, you know, if there's unnatural blinking, unnatural facial expressions, weird lighting, robotic sounding noises, you know, the cadence doesn't seem right. All of those things can help alert you to the fact that the video or the image might not be real. So you want to incorporate that into your training program. And that's the biggest takeaway here is that if you have a training security program, incorporate deepfake detection into that, and how do you respond? And you know, some of the same things we do with business email compromise and phishing, those types of things, it's sort of the same idea. So if somebody in your company receives a call from a senior level executive, they're not used to receiving such a call, maybe they need to be on alert. If they receive a call from a government agency or from the IT department and nothing's wrong with their computer, you know, they need to be careful. What are they sharing? Don't give out socials, you know, don't give out credit card information. Don't give out sensitive company information. Don't reveal any of your reporting relationships with your company if they're asked about it. You know, again, if they, just like phishing, if they try to create this false sense of urgency, that's something that you need to be looking out for. And then, you know, having a policy in place. What, you know, employee encounters something, what do they do? Who do they call? Who do they report to? Make sure it's incorporated into your incident response planning. And, you know, does your insurance policy address these things? Some of the similar steps you should take, like you do just for your overall cybersecurity training and awareness program.